Hi, welcome back to Pragmatic Agility. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at establishing an S3 bucket in Amazon Web Services. Now, an S3 bucket is just a service that allows you to save and retrieve data. However, there are a lot of concepts that we will not be going over in this lesson. They can get complicated in their own right, and those include concepts such as versioning, access control lists, security roles for users, and some other details as well. In this lesson, we're just going to look at establishing a bucket and uploading and retrieving a file from that bucket and briefly discussing what public access means, because typically you will want to avoid public access. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. So if we open our Amazon Web Service Management Console and we go to the storage section, we should see a hyperlink for S3. Go ahead and give that a click. Now I already have a bucket out here, but I'm going to create another bucket. And the bucket name is global, so if another user happens to have a bucket with the name you're trying to use already, you will have to select a new bucket name. The easiest thing to do is usually just to append a number to the end. Looks like I got lucky. And not going to do anything there. Next, I'm going to leave all these options at the default setting. There's a reference to the versioning that I mentioned in the previous statement, but we're just going to leave the defaults on. Next, I'm going to block all public access by default. We'll look at disabling that after we establish the bucket so that we do have public access, and then we'll block public access again. Next, and then create bucket. And you should see your bucket populate in the S3 buckets list. I'm going to go ahead and select my new bucket. First thing I'm going to do is establish the ability to make objects within that bucket public. Now that does not mean that as soon as I add an object that it's public. It just means I have the ability to make objects in that bucket public. Objects by default will typically not be public. So permissions. Block all public access. We need to edit that. I'm going to uncheck this tick box, save it. I'm going to confirm that I want to do this because making data public is a big deal. And then I'm going to go back to my overview or my Amazon S3 buckets. So objects can be public. I'm going to go ahead and select it. I'm going to upload a file. I'm going to add a file. I'm just going to use this select statement. I'm going to click next. Click next. For the storage class, I'm just going to use standard. There's a lot of details in these other storage classes, but I'm just going to use standard for now. Next, upload. And here is our file. Now, let's go ahead and select it. This is the object URL that should allow us to view the file. Let's go ahead and give that a click and see what happens. Access denied. So as it is currently, there is no public access to this file. Let's go ahead and change that. I'm going to select it. Permissions. Everyone. Read object, which means that the public can look at the object, but they can't actually change the object unless I give them right object permissions. Save. Let's go back. Let's go ahead and select this. And here's that same URL. Let's go ahead and give it a check now and see if we can actually see that object or that file. And yes, we can. So now we have public access established. Anyone can look at this file. It's not a very important file. It just has some very common SQL in it, or even this last where restricts isn't really valid SQL, so it's not a very important file by any means. So I'm going to go back. Let's go ahead and take away the public access because we want it to be private again. So I'm going to select the file, go back into permissions, select everyone, uncheck the read object. Now the public can no longer read or write to the file. We still have the file there. We can download the file. Download, and there it is. I've downloaded it. So I have established an S3 bucket. I have saved a file to that bucket. I've downloaded the file to that bucket from that bucket. I've established public access. Then I took public access away from that file. Whenever dealing with cloud services that manage data, you definitely want to be taking a closer look at the kind of access that you're allowing to your files. You don't want to accidentally leave sensitive data open to the public, because robots that are scanning internet sites can easily find those and save those, and someone can decide to do something with that at a later date. Anyways, that completes this lesson. If you found the content useful, please give it a like or subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next lesson. Thank you.